Hello everyone, welcome to another flip through of Best Left Buried Deeper. My name is Zach, I run Soul Muppet Publishing. I'm going to be taking you through the Cryptdigger's Guide to Survival today, the player handbook of the Best Left Buried Deeper trilogy. Just a bit of context, the Kickstarter finished about 2 months ago now, 6 weeks maybe, and we've put out the first book, the Hunter's Guide to Monsters, and this is the second one, the Cryptdigger's Guide to Survival, the one that the players are going to be using to create characters and know the rules of the game. This is a work in progress document. We've finished our layout pass, we think everything's in the right place. There's a couple of art pieces missing, and we're going to go through it and start hunting for typos now and sort of, getting it ready so it's cleaned up and ready to hit you guys in a week or two. Once we've had a chance to do the check on it. So everything here is temporary. If you see any mistakes, we're probably going to catch it, and we might have already even caught it. I've sent a bunch of feedback already on this, but just want to give you guys a chance to have a look at this working document. Just a bit of deadlines context. We are a little bit behind what we said we'd managed to deliver. Books have turned out to be longer and more beautiful than we'd planned, which takes more time. And there's stretch goals as well. Just hired a second layout artist to get things to you quicker, so the stretch goals will hopefully arrive in time. This is the Cryptdigger's Guide to Survival. This is part of our Best Left Buried trilogy, and it's the most used book out of the trilogy. So there's a big focus here on information design and compartmentalizing the information and presenting it into ways which make it easy for you, the player, or you, the doomsayer, to use this book at the table. This is the new cover. It's a slightly visually upgraded version of the old one, with the same two characters in the same situation, crawling through a cave with a creepy demon beast in the background. I guess the first thing to do is talk about the people who made this book. It was mostly written by me, and it was co-authored with Nick Spence, who is my minion of helping me come up with ideas when I'm in a bit of a rush. It was edited by Vi Huntsman, Fiona Geist, and James Hewitt. Two of those guys from the Moonrat Conspiracy, and then James is from Needy Cat Games. The layout artist has been done by our excellent layout friend, Dave Cox, of no relation to me, sadly. And the art throughout has been done by Ben Brown. There's also a character sheet, which I'll probably show off in a minute, which was put together by the lovely Lone Archivist. And I'll show you that as we sort of go through. So the most important thing for us as part of this book was that we got a lot of feedback about the way information was presented in this game. The rules flow in the original version of Best Left Buried and the Cryptdigger's Guide you all know and love was a little bit back and forth. It told you how to make a character first. It didn't explain a lot about role-playing games or what a dungeon master is or how to play. It assumes you already know how to play a role-playing game, and it puts you straight into making a character. The next thing it did is it then taught you the rules, and then it showed you some monster stuff. There was a bit of a break-up between the different parts, and information probably could have been presented a bit clearer. The new plan for this book is we want to teach you how to do everything as you're doing it. Particularly if you're the kind of person who wants to make a character first, then that's going to be the first one on your list of things to do, and you're going to be able to work through the different chapters in this book. Whereas also if you want to play the game, you want to be able to start on that playing the game chapter and learn those rules without having to engage with the character creation. So depending on the type of person you are for playing RPGs, you can approach this book in a totally different way. Something you might have noticed as a result of this is that we have nearly doubled the page count of the original Cryptdigger's Guide. We were at 52 pages, or 60, in the most recent version. But we've actually pushed some of that content to the monster manual. Stuff to do with monster moods and stuff to do with non-mechanical difficulty that used to sit in the Cryptdigger's Guide. We've pushed that into the monster manual because it just made more sense. The main monster information is here. All the sort of adaptations which you would need to make a character, or use abilities that involve sort of potions and poisons and stuff. We've kept those in this main book. So you can play Best Left Brain with just this one book. There's nothing missing from it. But you probably want to have those extra 2 books to help you out. So this is your one-stop shop for all the core rules of Best Left Buried. So one of the main things we did is that we broke the different chapters we have into a few different chunks. So we've added an introduction to getting started chapter. We've broken down making a character into 4 separate stages, which is the actual, here's what to do to make a character, and then some information about the archetypes, equipment and advancements that you would use to make those characters. And it's allowed us to add a little bit more depth and consistency to the ability, the sort of things you can pick when you're making a character, while still keeping it pretty straightforward. All the choices you can make are summed up in that making a character section, but if you want to dig into more detail about them, you can move into those archetypes, equipment and advancements section. The useful thing about this game is that we're going to keep the random character generator that we have on the Best Left Brain Depot on the website that you can get online, linked on our website, and you'll be able to use that to make one of these new characters with all the new abilities and stuff put in, including all the high level stuff that we're adding as stretch goal content. So if you want to learn about that, we'll keep you updated as that goes. David Sheridan, I think I'm saying his name right, is working on that at the moment. So there's lots of hands making this work happen quickly. And then the final bit of the rules are playing the game, the consequences your characters will develop throughout play, and then a little bit of rules about monsters. So the first thing is that we've talked about what the book is and what the different components of Best Left Brain Deeper are. So you will get an in-depth description of what a Cryptdiggers, Doomsayers and Hunters guide all mean and what they do. And then the other thing we've added formally is a introduction to safety tools and content warnings, which we've not included in previous books. If that seems like a thing you think shouldn't be in the game, I don't care. It's important. It was a mistake to not include it the first time round, because there's a lot of horrible stuff that can happen in Best Left Buried, and if you're not prepared for that, if you're not warned it's going to happen by the book, then that can be quite a sharp surprise for either a player or a dungeon master when that stuff emerges in play. We want to make sure the people who are enjoying our game can do it in a safe and inclusive manner, no matter who's at the table. And that's been a bit of a focus of this new remastering, to make sure that we can keep the game as cool as it used to be before while still making it inclusive. So that warning's in there. The other thing we did is the thing that everyone always hates. We explain what dice mean and, what notations you might need. But we've done it right next to a cool illustration of a wizard casting some weird spell. So can't go wrong with that. What is a D3? You'd have to Google it, and we want you to be able to use this book. And assuming that Best Left Buried makes it to a world post the internet, I want everything you need to play Best Left Buried to be included in the books that we sell for Best Left Buried. So yeah, more stuff in here. The other thing we've added is this getting started chapter. We've talked about what you need to do to use the book. If you're a Doomsayer, what should you read? If you're a player, what should you read? And then also what play looks like in a role-playing game. The Doomsayer describes a situation. The players describe how they wish to interact with it. The Doomsayer decides if any mechanics should use to be resolved the interaction. And then, if mechanics are used, narrate the outcome, explain how the situation's changed, rinse and repeat. That's a role-playing game right there. Obviously, the procedures are a bit more complicated than that, but that's the loose cycle of play that you need to enjoy. The other thing we've done is we've kept the rules quite simple, and we've included a 4-page rules summary. So everything that you need as a player to understand the rules of Best Left Buried are going to be included in these sections. We might not explain how or why you use a mechanic, but we've explained all the mechanics here. So if you just read these 2 pages and then these bits, you would have everything that you need. And then there's a big art here, because there's going to be some art there soon. Ben's working on it right now. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but there'll be a piece of art that goes there. So, for example, look at how we explain observation checks. The Doomsayer may request an observation check to discern details in the character's surroundings. Roll 2d6. On a result of 9 plus a success, otherwise they fail. Observation checks may have the upper hand or be against the odds. There's the rules for observation checks. Obviously, there's information we've left out of there that will be explained later on in the rules. Why would a Doomsayer request an observation check? What does a pass look like? What does a failure look like? But as a player, that kind of tells you what dice you need to roll and how you need to engage with the situation. And there's similarly got stuff like attacking here, what dice would you use to do an attack and stuff like that. So if you can print these 2 pages out with a nice piece of art on them and give it to a player to explain to them how to play the rules. We are working on the Zini edition, but that one's going to be a bit longer. We're focusing on getting the core 3-book product out to you guys first before we get any auxiliary tools, because we'll be giving the Zini edition to free as a free product for everyone in PDF, so that should be good. Okay, making a character. So this has covered the sort of names and inspiration stuff that we talked about right in the book. How do you come up with an idea for a character? We've talked about that a little bit, which is good. And then here we can see some of the elements of the Best Left Braid character sheet that we've basically put in throughout the character creation section. Obviously, I wish that our character sheets could look like Mothership, and that we had a great way where you could kind of flow and tick boxes on the character sheet to push stuff through. But sadly, that's not something that we can do with the complexity of the way that we've designed Best Left Braid. If it was simpler, that would have been a goal. What we've done here is you're basically going to point you towards the areas of the character sheet that you're going to use for different sections of these player creation rules. So where would I put an advancement? What do Vigor and Grip do? Where are these stats? How can we explain them? And then we talk about what the stats are here and how you'd allocate them. That's all good. And then sort of walk you through filling this character sheet as you go. Where would these stats go at the top here? How would you fill in Vigor and Grip? How does Vigor and Grip advance? All this information that you need to start making a character. And then there's a nice spread here about equipment. Every character gets some weapons and then 3 pieces of equipment from this new D36 list we're using. And there's also a little bit of equipment you use here. And if you'd say, well, why would I want to have a certain type of weapon? Here it is. Here, that's an explanation of what they might do. And then if you want to know mechanically what the weapons do, you can head over to the equipment chapter and find out some more information about them. And the next thing is you can choose an archetype. They're covered in another chapter. So we're looking at those. And then there's the advancements section as well. And then finally, you'd go back and do these next steps. We've basically made it so that if you follow these and then look at the respective chapters, you'll be able to pick the information as you go. Or you'll be using sort of like a randomizer, in which case you can refer to the actual core content on particular pages. The next step is these archetype pages. These weren't particularly well presented the first time round. What we've done this time, as I'm sure you're about to see, is that we have a page for each archetype. So you can go through and see. Here's a picture of a believer. Here's all the stats for what they do. Here's their suggested advancements. We've gone through all with some weird and wonderful pieces of new art. Cutthroats, dastards, everymen. We put examples of everymen in because people requested that. They're like, well, what am I actually meant to use this for? And then we'll go at this again. Outcasts, physicers, protagonists, scholars, travellers, and veterans. And then we're on to the equipment section. Again, we've covered like what the basic equipment rules are here. How does inventory work? We've added a formalised inventory system, which is something that people asked for a lot. How much stuff can a Cryptdigger carry? Well, that's covered now in the rules, and you don't have to sort of abstract it by however much stuff you can carry. Got a few Slateful reviews about that, so if you said that, well done. There's now an equipment system in the game. We borrowed this equipment system from Darkling Seas of Islesmere, which used this. It was one of the contributions that Nick added to the game, which were really helpful. We've also added some rules for money, because that's another thing that you horrible fans said you wanted. So we've added 2 optional money systems here. You can choose which one you prefer. One of which is you have an affluence stat that you roll checks against when you want to buy something. The difficulty of the check is determined by how expensive the thing you want to buy is. And if you fail, you can spend one of your affluence stats to pass, and then that stat's reduced forever. The other version is quite simple. It's experience is gold. Every time you would get gold for experience, you get experience as gold. So if you get a couple of points of experience from getting some money out of the crypt, then you will get some actual money to go along with it as well, which then can be used to spend on this price list. So you could use it to buy hirelings or fancy meals or weapons or poisons or gunpowder or whatever. And then it sort of explains what cost you'd need to get them, and then what stuff you'd need, what difficulty the check would be if you wanted to buy it. We've also included some information about hirelings here, how you could get them, and how you could get a follower or a hireling. So we've also put some stuff about the individual bits of equipment. What do weird equipments do? We've added medicine, books, and explicit rules for what Alchemist's Fire does, because that was one of the questions when we played the previous version. And then just a breakdown here of the different types of weapons. Here's the weapon table that you would reference when you were choosing what you want as a character, and then some descriptions about what each one of the weapons do. We've also added some rules for improvised weapons, and which counts as unarmed weapons as well, basically. And we've formalised the gunpowder rules into something that you are expected to include in the game, although obviously Doomsayers can remove them should they wish. More information about shields and armour, an explicit section, and then this weird little bit of esoteric equipment. We've added 3 pages of this because we had a multiple of 4 left, so we put some new equipment in. This stuff previously used to live in advancements, so if you wanted to learn about potions, you had to read the concoctionist advancement, which didn't make any sense, because it meant that the only players who had access to potions had to read that equipment section. So we've pulled potions and poisons out of that section and put it into esoteric equipment. We've also added, because we could, spell books, which include spell scrolls, and holy relics, so stuff that wizards might carry around with them, basically, what would you call it, like a divine charm or something, that would give you advantages on certain types of check when fighting different monsters and stuff like that. Again, so this is quite a nice set of spreads. And then we're on down here to the advancement stuff. We've added 6 new advancements to bring the total to 36, in case you wanted to randomly generate an advancement by rolling a d36. Again, not something we had to do, but it was something that some people asked for, so we've included it in the game. So the new ones, I'll point them out as we go. There are Chemicus charges, which allow you to basically make bombs. So smoke bombs, sap bombs, and fire bombs that you can then throw at people. We've also added Flurry of Blows, which allows you to basically make a second attack with a weapon against the odds by spending a point of grip. We've added Marksman's Aim, which is a martial or devious sniping move, where you basically spend an action to gain the upper hand on the next attack. This is particularly good for doing ambushes and stuff like that. We've additionally added Otherworldly Perception, which is a weird spell which basically gives a wizard or an arcane character access to supernatural senses. So you can hear distant conversations or taste distant objects, or tell if a spell has been cast in the area and identity of the mage if you know them. So just these weird supernatural senses that you might be able to activate. As well, we've added Shield Wall, which allows you to spend grip to reduce damage from attacks, and also Witch's Curse, which is ran off the bottom of the table, which is basically a debuff spell you target at a monster to give them disadvantage on stats and attacks, stat checks and attacks related to a specific role. We're having some problems with the kerning here at the moment. This is one of the things we're going to work on improving, just so we can make sure everything's all on the same page. Playing the game. So this is where my favourite bit of the new rules section is happening. So we've managed to get basically everything onto really neat spread-based design. That's the case throughout the whole book, but we've really improved it in this section, which is going to help Doomsayers run the game. So stat checks is here as you'd expect it. There's the basic rules for how, but this is the core mechanic of the game, so it's the thing we do first. And then we talk about the upper hand and against the odds and how they might cancel out with each other. So this is how a stat check might be made harder or more difficult. So here you've got a Cryptdigger trying to open a wooden door with a crowbar. That's pretty easy. Whereas this Cryptdigger is injured and is trying to open a stone door, and it's not going to be as easy. And then you've got instances where there's multiple things going on which make the situation cancel each other out. And again, that's a really nice spread of everything you could need to know about this upper hand against the odds thing in a single situation. We've then added exertion, observation checks and grip checks on this page spread, which is really good. Talked a bit about combat here. We've done initiative and surprise on this table. Then we talked about zones and turns on the next one. And then attacking is covered in a lot of detail here. We've put a couple of examples in, which is always helpful. The section on monsters and ganging up is here. Then we've gone through escape, status conditions, grappling. Dying is here, resting is here. And then the additional rules and levelling up section. So all this stuff is very tightly wound together, and you also get to look at this horrible horse creature. God save you if you have to fight that thing in a game. It's like a horse spider with a face hanging out its mouth. I don't know if this bit here is its intestines, or if that's its face, or it's digesting something, or it's just a long tongue, or if this is the face and this is like a neck joint. I don't know what's going on here, and I don't think you do either. So pop in the comments what you think this monster is, because I don't know. We've gone on to consequences here, so we're talking about things your character can develop throughout play. We've made a bit of a change here to make it clear that you're not expected to pick these up if you don't want them. We want to make the game as inclusive to people as we can. We've also put it in that we expect that not all injuries are going to stick around forever. Maybe, if you want to play that kind of game where injuries don't last as long as they otherwise would, then that's within your power to do. We want to empower Doomsayers to make decisions about how the game looks and to sort of relieve injuries if it's applicable. And then we've gone through the way these rules work, and the list of them is here. It's again pretty straightforward. They're all spread quite nicely onto 2 spreads. And then the monster section is the last part of the book. We've covered sort of like the basic advice on creating monsters here, and then talking about how to make a monster on this page here on the left, and then the monster adaptions are being covered over the next few pages, along with some weird pieces of art. And then finally we end on the back cover. So we've gone through, we've put a lot of work into this book. Dave has really blasted it out of the park when it comes to the spread and the information design and making sure that everything's really clear, and we've worked with a whole team of editors and 2 writers to make sure the manuscript is as well thought out and put together and points in all the right directions and improves the information optimization that was maybe one of the disadvantages of playing the original version. So this book is going to help you play Best Left Buried better than ever before, and we're hoping that you guys will get to enjoy it in the next few weeks, and you'll see a PDF of this certainly in time for Christmas, and we're hoping for the Doomsayers Guide to appear a bit after. You got any questions or any comments, then do let us know. Would love to talk more about these books. If there's any other Soul Muppet products you'd like to see me do read-throughs of, then do get in touch, and I'd love to talk about this as we go. But yeah, hopefully you guys can appreciate this is so much a better version of the book than the one that we were using this time last year, and we're really going to improve the products we go forward by committing to this new standard of information and graphic design that we've been able to get by working with professional layout guys rather than me doing it and doing a bad job. So thanks for watching. I'll speak to you all soon. Please do pop comments below if you've got any questions, or pop a comment on the Kickstarter page if you're a follower. And I'll speak to you soon, and hopefully you'll be able to get this book out to you sooner rather than later. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.